AMD has been punching its way through 2019, good gracious, and they just decided to throw in AMD RX 5500 XT into the mix. So I decided to create this 5500 XT review also into the mix. As far as 2019 is considered, in the CPU department, AMD has been kicking the ball out of the park in its mainstream server grade and workstation division, making Intel look like an amateur kid. And it's so funny how evolution happens. A few years back, everyone thought the speed with which the CPUs will evolve in the CPU industry will be depicted by Intel and Intel alone. Ain't that the case anymore, my friend? And when you perform so well in one front, everybody naturally expects you to perform good in all fronts. Yep, that's how things happen. As far as the GPU division in AMD is considered, AMD spent this year packing and shipping the new RDNA architecture based Navi 145700 XT reviews to the customers. And as we move closer to the culmination of 2019, AMD has put forth its new Navi 10 RDNA architecture based AMD Radeon 5500 XT in front of us, which are going to be focused on 1080 pixel gaming segment. The tech community had a lot of things to say about this introduction. Hardware Unboxed benchmarked the hell out of the graphics card and concluded that he isn't happy. Jay's 2 cents finally gave into the confusion. Linus, I feel, is still dropping things, and Kyle finally gave in and decided to build a computer with 5500 XT graphics card in it using drunk goggles. Come on man, come on, go all the way. In any case, he built a computer system which was much better than the worst PC build.
Pow!
Yep, we are not letting it go, not even in 2020. In this RX 5500 XT review, I'm going to put in all of these perspectives into perspective and then give you a perspective. See what I did there? As to whether what is the place of this graphics card in this overcrowded GPU segment and whether you should go ahead and buy it or not. Welcome back, ladies and gents. My name is Shubham Rajput and you are watching Yantras.com. So let's look into a little backstory before we go ahead with our 5500 XT review. AMD, in order to provide some sweetness to our eagerness, actually announced the cards back in October. In that announcement, wait, are you watching this video without subscribing? Yeah, that's a crime. Slap like now and subscribe to this channel, or I'll come to your home and eat your cookie. Alright, back to AMD. Epic. In that announcement, AMD said that the card release will be primarily an OEM-centric release in which all the reference cards will only be provided to their OEM partners and the retail cards will be available in late Q4. Well, Q4 is here and now these cards are hitting the market left and right. Just to be clear, the RX 5500 XT series of cards will be targeting the sub $200 market segment of 1080 pixel gaming, finally replacing the I am not ready to die RX 500 series of cards.
आयुवर्धक ओहो आयु के पीछे तो लोग पागल हैं, कोई मरना चाहता ही नहीं.
AMD is following a similar pattern here as it did in its Polaris based GPUs. Here also the 5500 series of cards will be coming in two variants, 8GB and 4GB. Well, 4GB is sufficient as of now, but entering 2020 when new consoles are coming up, new titles are coming up, the gaming benchmarks will be elevated. It will be quite interesting to see how the 4GB variant will perform. But a lot of things will become clear as we look into the benchmarks as well. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and talk some specs. Underlying the new cards is AMD's new Navi 14 GPU. AMD has taken the essential elements of its RDNA architecture and created a smaller, cheaper and a much more power efficient GPU. In the process of its creation, AMD castrated the Navi 10 GPU to include a reduced number of compute units, ROPs and memory bandwidth. When compared with the Navi 10 GPU, AMD has dropped about 3.9 billion transistors, which has led to a 37% reduction in die size for the Navi 14 GPUs. When compared with the Polaris architecture based GPUs, 12% more transistors are now crammed up in just 70% of the space that was used in case of Polaris architecture based GPUs. Quite interesting, isn't it? All of these improvements are happening as a result of TSMC's 7nm process, which is at the heart of AMD's CPU and GPU division in 2019. This is in stark contrast to Nvidia, which is still using TSMC 12nm process for their GPUs. Although AMD has never actually revealed the complete specifications of Navi 14 GPU, but with the parts that were shipped in its OEM partners, particularly the Radeon Pro 5510, which also happened to make its place in the Apple laptops, we know that Navi 14 GPUs are going to have 24 control units. But looking at the retail parts, it seems that the new graphics card, the retail graphics card, only have 22 control units. This is not going to affect the performance as such, but one wonders why this is being done. Are we skimping here, AMD? 7nm process is a very expensive process, and what I speculate is that AMD is trying to extract as many dies as it possibly can from its Navi 14 wafers that can be deployed to create as many graphics cards as AMD can. Well, this is a business decision to save money, isn't it? Right. Although the 5500 series of cards have less compute units as compared to the 5700 series of cards, the 5500 series of cards are clocked at a higher speed than the 5700s. But don't have this conclusion that clock speeds are the only parameters of performance when it comes to graphics card. In terms of total overall performance, the peak throughput of 5500s is 5.2 teraflops, which is 35% less than the 5700 series of cards. And that is a typical kind of jump that you must expect when you are moving from one tier of cards to absolutely another tier of cards. Product positioning and competition. The 5700 series of cards that were released prior to this were created to meet the requirements of 1440 pixel gaming and to a great extent deliver quite well in that segment. Do not, and I mean do not, expect any kind of exotic, extra thick or anime based designs in the retail. You will only be disheartened. You will only be concerned. And I don't want you to be disheartened. Yes. As far as performance is considered, and you will see this in a moment when we look at the benchmarks, what I have seen is that the RX 5500 XT, the 4GB and the 8GB variants have not completely outclassed or outperformed the RX 580 or the RX 590. In many cases, the RX 590 performed quite well when compared to the new RX 5500 XT 8GB variant. Wait, what? Then why the hell are these cards here? That's a great question. So there is a lot of confusion that is arising amongst the masses, and because of which they are out on the streets and are asking AMD, why the hell did you create these cards when they can't even outclass your previous generation of cards? While AMD has created cards which in terms of power are quite efficient, but when you game at this segment, you are not looking to conserve power that much. All you want is maximum power in the limited amount of budget that I have given you. So give me the power and get the hell out is what AMD fans are asking AMD. So too many questions in part 1. Too many questions. Time will tell the answer to everything. Trust in the force you should. Looking at the competition that these cards are going to face from the green side, RX 5500 series of cards will be going head to head against the RX 1650 Super and the RX 1660 Super. These cards were created, I feel, as a preemptive response to these new cards coming into the market. I wonder what kind of situation might be in the corporate offices of Nvidia when the Nvidia overlords suddenly showed themselves into the office and said, "We need new cards by the end of this week. Get it done." Well, if there's someone from Nvidia watching this, Comment it down below. Both of these cards from Nvidia are based on the TU1116 GPU. RX 5500 XT is $10 more expensive than the 1650 Super and is $10 cheaper than the 1660. And the price difference among these cards also very clearly reflects the relative performance amongst them. I don't know when companies in the world are going to evolve from animalistic competition drive to actually creating something on the basis of enriching user experience drive. To add some spice into the mix, AMD is bundling your purchase with some game deals. Along with the 3-month trial to Microsoft Xbox Games Pass program, the company is also bundling the forthcoming Master Edition of Monster Hunter Iceborne, which is scheduled to be released in early 2020. Nvidia isn't bundling jack right now. Alright, so now it is that time for which all of you have been eagerly waiting for. All of this fluff aside, it is only benchmarks that truly represent what is the true performance of the card, and that is precisely what we are going to look into in this next section. We will be using the benchmarks from Anand Tech, which is one of the most trusted source of benchmarks that you can possibly have when it comes to computer hardware. So let's go ahead and see those benchmarks, because I don't have the card with me and I couldn't create my own benchmarks. Let's go ahead. In the benchmarks generated by Anand Tech, the 5500 XT graphics card that was used was a Sapphire Pulse RX 5500 XT 8GB variant. The various games in which the benchmarks were produced were Tomb Raider, F1 2019, Assassin's Creed, Metro Exodus, Strange Brigade, Total War, Division 2, Grand Theft Auto, and Forza Horizon 4. The cards that were used to benchmark against were the RX 5500 cards, obviously, the RX 5700, GTX 1660 Super, GTX 1650 Super, RX 580, RX 570, GTX 1063GB. If you want to have a full look at all of these benchmarks, I will leave the link in the description section below. You can go ahead and check it out there as well. As expected, the RX 5700 outperformed everything, and you will see a similar performance gap across all benchmarks. 1080 pixel high preset for Shadow of the Tomb Raider GTX 1660 surpassed the 5500 XT 8GB by 5 frames on average and was just slightly better than the RX 580 and also the 1650 Super. As I mentioned this previously also, the pricing actually reflects the relative performance amongst these cards. In F1 2019 at ultra high quality preset, the 1660 Super and the 1660 in this case surpassed the performance of RX 5500 XT 8GB by a healthy margin. And the thing to note here is the close calls shared between the RX 580 and also the RX 5500 XT. In Assassin's Creed Odyssey at its very high preset, 1660 and 1660 Super exceeded the performance of 5500 XT, which again was very closely matched by RX 580. Moving on, Metro Exodus 1080 pixel Ultra. As you can see, the story is again quite similar here. AMD, it seems, is not giving us upgrades to the RX 500 series. It seems they are just replacements. Let's move on. Strange Brigade 1080 pixel Ultra quality saw the 1660 Super and the 1650 surpass the RX 5500 with a significant margin, followed by close almost equal performance by the 1650 Super and the RX 580. The performance gradient was quite similar for Total War Kingdoms. 1080 pixel Ultra quality saw the 1660 Super and the 1660 outperform RX 5500 XT marginally, followed by RX 580 and the 1650 Super. We are seeing a pattern here, aren't we? For the Division 2 1080 pixel Ultra preset, 5500 XT actually traded close blows between the 1660 and 1660 Super. I'm having this feeling that people who have RX 580s and RX 590s are giggling watching this video, me included. Well, you go 1650 Super, a good spike indeed, with the rest of the story remaining almost same. power management and efficiency. So if you have been following along in the Navi developments, you must have realized that AMD actually has done a great job in creating a graphics card which is very power efficient and has a very good noise profile. If that is something that you are very keen on, you will see that 5500 XT actually performs really well in these departments. It is pretty clear from the benchmarks that the 5500 XT, both the 4GB and 8GB variants, sit comfortably at 50 watts, which is pretty low when compared with other graphics cards. This is precisely the reason why custom cards like the one created by Sapphire are able to offer zero fan speed on idle load. With idle system requirements already low, the load power consumption looks pretty cool too. For titles such as Shadow of the Tomb Raider, the total system power consumption is very competitive with Nvidia, as is clear from the benchmarks. Talking about noise profiles, so this is that arena where 5500 XT actually blows everybody out of the park. And I mean everybody. 5500 XT in terms of noise performance tops all the charts. A card that portrays TDP as 130 watt, the fans actually have to do very little work. The fans seem to cross the 1000 RPM mark only when the high performance BIOS of the Sapphire is brought into action. Else everything stays under the 800 RPM mark even on gaming workloads. So definitely the card has larger volume, but at the same time it's quite a cool card. Quite cool. You see what I did there? No? Okay. The tech community in general, the consensus is that these cards which are produced by AMD are nothing special, and the price that AMD is asking for these cards, given the fact that the performance gap between these cards and the previous generation cards is not that much, the price that AMD is asking is quite high. So this is what the tech community is saying. Now let's understand where AMD stands. For the past 18 months, we have seen some really cheap deals on the RX 500 series of cards. While that is very good for consumers and PC builders who are building computers on a budget, this has also disrupted the 1080 pixel gaming market for AMD to a great extent. With the launch of 5500 XT series of cards, AMD is not trying to upgrade the 1080 pixel gaming segment, but is trying to replace the older stocks with the new stock, and filling these segments with the help of 5500 XT with newer technology and enhanced design and gaming performance. AMD will be able to charge the amount that they want at a very consistent basis for a larger chunk of time, while at the same time they will be continuously removing the stacks and stocks of the previous generation 500 series cards out from the market. So once again, I want to make this pretty clear in front of you that the different kinds of expectation that these different domains of people, in terms of tech enthusiasts, in terms of consumers, and in terms of AMD as a company, are quite different, and everything needs to be collaborated in one specific domain to understand what is happening here. So see, this is how business decisions are made. They are always made in the things that you cannot see. Coincidence or conspiracy? You decide.
The next day.
So, amidst all of this confusion, the question still stands: should we get this graphics card or not? Well, I have been telling you this from the first video that I made on this channel. If you are very clear with what your need is, you will never have any bench of confusion. Again, I cannot fulfill or I cannot understand the need of everyone who wants to build a computer out there, but what I can definitely do is divide this need into categories, and you can see which category you belong to, and then you can take a wise decision. So let's go ahead and look at these categories. The first category is you want to upgrade your PC. If that is all you want to do from your computer, wait. Don't buy the RX 5500 XT, because if you are upgrading the computer, there is a good chance that you already have an RX 560, 570 or 580 or maybe even 590. If that is the card that is there in your computer, there is no need to upgrade it to 5500 XT. The performance gap is very small and there won't be any kind of enhanced performance that you will experience, and it's a no-no, alright? Don't do it. Don't buy it if you are upgrading your computer. You understand? Good. The second category of people is you are wanting to build a new computer, but you are on a tight budget. And if you are on a tight budget, there is a good chance, and especially if you are living in a country like India where the prices of computer parts and technology is generally just absolutely ridiculous. If that is the case, then an RX 580, RX 590, or even an RX 570 can actually be found at really cheap deals. So if that is what you can somehow find for yourselves, that will be a great card, especially if you are on a tight budget. Last but not the least, this category where you want to build a computer for yourselves and you are very clear that your requirement is 1080 pixel gaming and that you have no budget constraints. If that is the case, then I can happily recommend you 5500 XT. Plus the card is quite cool and performs really good. But please don't limit yourselves to RX 5500 XT. If you even can get a GTX 1660 or the GTX 1660 Super at steep prices, that is also some very viable option that you can use for yourselves. One other big bad question that everybody who is reviewing this card seems to just overlook is whether you should go with the 4GB version or the 8GB version, and that is a very good question. With the next gen consoles soon to be launched next year, I seriously doubt that the 4GB VRAM capacity will hold its own. As far as the current requirements goes, Stephen Burke, Jesus, actually said that you can happily pick up the 4GB variant or the 8GB variant and you won't see any performance difference whatsoever in the cards. And to a great extent that is true as well, because if what you want to do is only game at medium settings and are sometimes ready to sacrifice that extra performance, or if you're not looking too much into the future, yes, the 4GB variant and the 8GB variant will go just as well. My personal perception is go with the 8GB of them, because with the way technology is evolving, with the way gaming standards are increasing, with the way games are now being looked at, I doubt that the 4GB or even the 6GB in the 1660s and all of these cards that are released are, I feel, slowly going to phase out as the whole industry evolves. So if you absolutely cannot pay for the 8GB variant, you can go ahead and get the 4GB variant. And why stop yourselves at 5500 XT 4GB? You can even go and look ahead at the 1650 Super if you can get a good deal at that. But if you want to max everything out at 1080 pixel, 1660 Super or 5500 XT 8GB are going to serve your needs absolutely perfectly. I seriously hope you liked this 5500 XT review and learned some insights here which you were not able to learn anywhere on the planet. Like, share and subscribe and comment your heart out in the comment section below so that you can be riddled by videos such as this. I request you to take great care of yourselves and I am going to see you again very soon. Namaskar.